It is not a contest to see whose dinghy can hold air the longest at spec pressure. This is especially true when we are dealing with damaged fabric. Now, we've already done a segment in our discussion series entitled Inflation Pressure. Today, we're going to mention inflation pressure again, but our main focus is on damaged fabric, specifically damaged hypalon fabric. We're going to talk about what types of damage exist or that we typically see in our day-to-day on these vessels. We'll discuss a little bit of DIY with regard to those disasters. We'll talk about how the fabric is made up, this hypalon fabric. What is it comprised of? We'll discuss aftercare. Let's say that the vessel's been repaired. What can you do then following that repair to extend the longevity of the boat? So stay tuned. Examples of damaged fabric would be worn or chafed fabric, whether or not it's presenting leaks. Neglected fabric, that would be fabric that has not received the regular UV treatments. Those UV treatments are an enormous help to you. They really condition the fabric in addition to all sorts of other goodies. DIY vessels are damaged. If you've used contraindicated materials, you could have caused severe damage to those tubes. These contraindicated materials include, but are not limited to, silicone, Gorilla Glue, roofing tar, house paint, Flex Seal, magic erasers, and my personal favorite, 5200. Now, fabric is breathable, and the tubes can lose up to 25% of inflation pressure overnight due to temperature fluctuations, those afternoon rainstorms. Dinghies that have damaged or neglected fabric are far more likely to be breathers, okay? So you're gonna lose more of that pressure at certain times. And I did mention our focus is on hypalon today, so we're going to move into discussing the layers of hypalon. Your hypalon fabric has 3 layers. We have the colored layer, which is visible to you, and on newer boats or well-maintained vessels, this layer is going to be smooth, supple. It may even still be a bit shiny. Underneath that colored layer, we have the scrim, and you'll hear me refer to this as the gauzy stuff. Underneath the scrim is our neoprene, and I equate that to wetsuit material. So when you've got these damaged vessels, let me give you just a few examples here. Let's say our colored layer is missing or damaged, okay, so it's been chafed. Now, the scrim is exposed to the UV rays. And so with this piece of gauze, you see if we inflate the vessel, we are now stretching and stressing that exposed scrim. All these little tiny squares inside the gauze are opening up. These are larger holes now. And gauze is not resilient. Okay, so when those holes are open, now the UV rays can start attacking the neoprene, which is our last layer of defense. So I know we talked about the inflation pressure in another segment, but it's very important if you have a damaged vessel to monitor that pressure. We'll go into that in depth a little bit later on. Most of the time, your repair tech will have several remedies available to him or her with regard to the repair of your dinghy. But sometimes it's like you're reaching into our bag of tricks and removing some of those options from us. And by that I mean, when we have a case of just severe UV damage or an overabundance of DIY, then we're not able to go ahead and attack the repair in a normal manner. All right, there are additional measures that have to be taken, and sometimes with these severely damaged vessels, we will repair the major portion of everything and come back and inspect and see that we have several minor leaks that now we have to tackle, but we don't have good fabric to patch to anymore. So it gets a little bit screwy on our end at times. But some of these remedies would include the patches, our patches on the outside of the tubes for leaks or worn areas, or putting those down as reinforcing patches. We can do inside patches. We can take an area that's worn on the outside, we've got a lot of leaks and nothing to patch to, and we can cut into the boat and give it a backer, give it a reinforcer from the inside to stop those leaks. But we can't do that if you have let the neoprene get damaged, where it's flaking off, it's delaminating, there's nothing on the inside of the tube even to patch to. We can do interior and exterior sealant. Interior sealant is for tiny pinhole leaks. And sometimes we see these when we've stopped a super fast leak, we come back and inspect, because I want to know, is my work holding and did anything new pop up? And sometimes we'll see these little baby leaks, I call them creamers, and we can use the interior sealant for those. I'll use exterior sealant when we are dealing with the damaged fabric and I've placed a patch and I've picked the best fabric in that area to get it to adhere to, but I want to seal it up. All right, I don't want those corners peeling up on you when the boat gets out in the sun or you're dragging things across those tubes. We talked about, I think, that the paint job is, at my shop at least, not used solely for cosmetic purposes. What we're trying to do with that paint job is to replace the missing or damaged colored layer of fabric. So again, we're trying to protect our scrim and thus protect the neoprene that lies beneath that. Okay, the après surgery care chapter. There are things that you can and should be doing to extend the longevity of your vessel once you've received the repaired boat back from your repair tech. You need to monitor the pressure on these damaged vessels. And I'm going to lay out a scenario at the very end of this video. If you're already familiar with the inflation pressure, how to do it, how to monitor it, you can just skip the end of the video. Another thing that you can do to extend the longevity is to apply that UV treatment once a month. We like 303 aerospace protectant at my shop. That's what I recommend to all of my customers. And we can include a link to a tutorial as to how to apply that. If you have had a damaged vessel in for repair, when it comes back to you, you can't just go beat the crap out of it. I've got a customer, Billy, who's absolute murder on the dinghies. Love Billy. He always has a hysterical story for me. But boy, does he tear up these boats. You need to baby the ones that have had this damaged fabric. Try not to drag the beer cooler over the areas that you're aware were worn, okay? Try not to drag that beer cooler over the corners of patches that you know are sitting on damaged fabric. At my shop, I will often perform what I call the ugly repair. When we're dealing with severely worn and alligatored and UV damaged fabric, we will find a good spot for our patches. We want them to grab on good fabric, on decent fabric. But I'll go back and use a little bead of exterior sealant all around that patch or those patches. Try to protect those corners from wanting to peel up. Again, patches don't like to adhere to the damaged fabric. So repeatedly chafing a worn area or an area that had a leak it's akin to reopening a wound. You know, you make a great play in pickleball and you get a raspberry on your knee, and then it's just about healed, and a week later you're playing softball, slide it into home, you rip all that open again. You know, it's just not a good situation. If you notice that your lines are rubbing on the tubes and wearing through a certain area of that colored layer of fabric, ask your repair tech to provide you with a reinforcing patch, like a scuff pad, a chafe pad. They'll be happy to do that. I've been in this business for such a long time that I know I am occasionally guilty of throwing some information out there and presuming that it's going to make sense to you just because I have to see and deal with this kind of stuff all day, every day. So if ever I put something out there, a bit of advice or information that you don't understand, please don't hesitate to let me know. I'll try to rephrase it or approach it from a different angle and make sure that you're able to understand these maintenance procedures. So let me give you a really exaggerated scenario here. You've got this damaged vessel, just got it back from the repair shop, and you wake up in the morning, you want to go to breakfast, and it's pretty chilly outside. Water's cold, air's cold, 53 degrees, whatever. You want to pump up at least those aft chambers to spec pressure, meaning that they're going to be drum tight. The reason for that is the outboard causes a lot of vibration, and it will want to rip the transom holders off, rip the tubes away from the transom, and worst case scenario, rip the tubes away from the hull, where now it's you, the hull, and the outboard, and that is no Gouda. All right, so off you go to your breakfast, and you decide after, as the day is heating up, that you want to go snorkeling. Now it's hot as hell outside. Let some air out of those chambers. Give your neoprene and scrim just a chance to chill out and relax for a bit. Because now you've pumped up those chambers to spec in the morning. They're drum tight. You did that when the air is chilly, the water's chilly. As the day heats up, the tubes are going to expand, and the holes in our scrim and neoprene are going to open up. So we've got damaged fabric already. Again, the scrim is not resilient. So the more you open these holes, the more you're exposing the neoprene to these UV rays. So it's not going to hurt anything while you're swimming and snorkeling and messing around to let air out of the tubes. They're going to reinflate themselves in the heat of the day. Now let's drag our little fun adventure out even more, exaggerated a bit more. Finished with the snorkeling. The tubes are drum tight, and you decide you're going to go to cocktails and dinner. You do all of that, and now you're coming out. It's 9 o'clock at night. Again, the air is getting cooler, the water is getting cooler. Perhaps we've had an afternoon thunderstorm. Well, worst case scenario, you're just going to need to add a few pumps to those aft chambers so that you can safely make that run back to the big boat without causing damage to the transom holders or the tube to hole strips, tube to transom connections. So you don't have to be constantly watching the tubes or constantly monitoring the pressure. Just be mindful of the fact that you have a damaged vessel and that you need to baby it a bit. So the more you can avoid stretching and stressing seams, stretching and stressing scrim, stretching and stressing neoprene, the better off you're going to be. Last time, let me tell you that it's really important to apply that 303 UV protectant once a month, because each time you're doing it, you're adding to the benefit that it's giving you. I hope everything's made sense today, and I thank you very much for tuning in. I'm going to leave you with this stupid little anecdote. Back in my younger years, I had this factory job. Wasn't feeling well on the shift one night, and I hollered down the line and said, "Does anybody have any Pepto?" "Oh, nope, but we've got Alka-Seltzer." So someone hands me 2 little tablets, and we didn't have a place on our lines for beverages and stuff, so I went to the water fountain. Ate the 2 tablets, kind of, sort of, started chewing, got a little bit of water, and started walking back to my area, and what happened was, I had never taken Alka-Seltzer before, wasn't really expecting the effervescence, so to speak, to go crazy in there. And I remember that thing, and I kind of equate it to these vessels. So even if you have a brand new boat, why would you want to pump it up to spec and leave it out in the sun, jacked to spec, to stretch and stress the seams and the fabric to make those holes larger, just like, an old t-shirt gets all stretched out. And again, it, like the gauze, like the scrim, it's not resilient. So there are so many things that you can do to protect the vessels in the first place. If you already have experienced damage, but you've yet to get your boat to a reputable repair shop, well, you might have leaks going on. Don't just jack it up and say, I hope to hell, I don't have to pump it up for 3 days. That's not helping your situation at all. Baby that vessel a little bit. Try to keep it limping along until you can get it to a reputable repair shop. And if your tech has handed you a masterpiece of a repair, be respectful of the tech and that masterpiece, and just take care with these damaged vessels. All right, always here to help you. Thanks for tuning in.